Hi, welcome to day 2 of this week. Today for Spirit Week, I'm wearing a KU basketball jersey because we were number 1 in the country this year before we had to cancel all the NCAA tournaments and just always supporting the Jayhawks. So rock chalk. I'm excited to see what you guys are wearing today too. So today we are going to be reading chapters 13 and 14 of Because of Winn, Dixie. 13 and 14. I forgot for a second of Because of Winn, Dixie. So our objective today is to be able to identify the central message of a text. Central message can be identified as, can be also, the other words that you can use to talk about central message is theme, lesson, or message that the author wants you to learn. So if you look up here on your notes, Kipsters will be able to determine the central message of a text. The central message is the theme, lesson, or message that the author wants you to learn from the story. So this is a universal lesson that anybody can use in the world. So you don't want it to say the character's name in it because it's a message that can be applied to everyone. We'll get to some examples in a minute. So the steps to identify the central message are right down here. So if you look over here, the first step is you need to identify the problem within the text. Then you can identify how the problem was fixed or solved. When you're done identifying the problem and the solution, if there is a solution, sometimes there's not a solution, so then you skip that step. Ask yourself, what did the character learn in this story? So if you can ask yourself what the character learned, you can then flip that into a central message that can apply to everyone. Then ask yourself, what did the author want you to learn from the story? How can you use this lesson in your life? So that's the next step. And finally, you put it all together and determine what the central message or theme of the story is. So here are some examples. Believe in yourself, never give up, respect yourself and others, friends and family are important, don't judge a book by its cover, hard work pays off. Those are all examples of central message themes or central message ideas, but there's also so many more central messages that you could find. So those are just some examples that you might see throughout the story. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be identifying the central message in the story. Now, there's more than one central message or theme within a story, so we're looking specifically today just at chapters 13 and 14 to identify the central message in this part of the story. We will go through some of it together since there's not going to be a model or an example of it. We're going to go through some of the steps together as we go to the bottom. So you'll see here, what is the problem that Opal is facing? We'll talk through the problem in the story. Then we're going to kind of start to talk through part 2, and then you're going to choose part 3 on your own based off of what we read. But I will guide you guys through this as we go through our lesson today. So that brings us to our chapters. So we are now on to chapters 13 and 14. Just like yesterday, the chapters are also down at the bottom of this document, but right now you don't need to close anything out. You can just follow along on your screen as I'm reading from the video. All right, so chapter 13. I'm going to try to read it from here instead of from my book. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for me to scroll through it. Me and Winn-Dixie got into a daily routine where we would leave the trailer early in the morning and get down to Gertrude's Pets in time to hear Otis play his guitar music for the animals. Sometimes Sweetie Pie snuck in for the concert too. She sat on the floor and wrapped her arms around Winn-Dixie and rocked him back and forth like he was trying to pick out which pet she wanted. Oh, I'm sorry, I just missed a line. And rocked him back and forth like he was a big old teddy bear. And then, when the music was over, she would walk around because trying to pick out which pet she wanted. But she always gave up and went home because the only thing she really wanted was a dog like Winn-Dixie. After she was gone, I would sweep and clean up and even arrange some of Otis's shelves because he didn't have an eye for arranging things like I did. And when I was done, Otis would mark the time in the notebook that he had marked on the outside. 1 leather collar, 1 red leather leash, and the whole time he did not in any way ever act like I was a criminal. I'm sorry, for some reason it's making me hard to follow along with the story on this page. After working at Gertrude's Pets, me and Winn Dixie would go over to Herman W. Block Memorial Library and talk to Miss Franny Block and listen to her tell us a story. But my favorite place to be that summer was in Gloria Dump's yard. And I figured it was Winn Dixie's favorite place to be too, because when we got up to the last block before her house, Winn Dixie would break away from my bike and start to run for her, all he was worth, heading for Gloria Dump's backyard and his spoonful of peanut butter. Sometimes the Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry would follow me. They would holler, "There goes the preacher's daughter visiting the witch." "She's not a witch," I told them. It made me mad the way that they wouldn't listen to me and kept on believing whatever they wanted to believe about Gloria Dump. One time Stevie said to me, "My mama said you shouldn't be spending all your time cooped up in that little pet shop and at the library sitting around talking with old ladies. She says you should get out into the fresh air and play with kids your own age. That's what my mama says." "Oh, lay off her," Dunlap said to Stevie, and then turned to me. "He didn't mean it," he said. But I was already mad. I shouted at Stevie. I said, "I don't care what your mama says. She's not my mama, so she can't tell me what to do." "I'm going to tell my mama you said that," shouted Stevie. "And she'll tell your daddy, and he'll shame you in front of the whole church. And that pet shop man is retarded, and he was in jail, and I wonder if your daddy knows that." "Otis is not retarded," I said, "and my daddy knows he was in jail." That was a lie, but I didn't care. "And you can go ahead and tell on me if you want, you big bald-headed baby." I swear it wore me out yelling at Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry every day. By the time I got to Gloria Dump's yard, I felt like a soldier who had been fighting a hard battle. Gloria would make me a peanut butter sandwich straight off, and then she would pour me a cup of coffee with half coffee and half milk, and that would refresh me. "Why don't you play with them boys?" Gloria asked me. "Because they're ignorant," I told her. "They think that you're a witch. It doesn't matter how many times I tell them you are not." "I think they are just trying to make friends with you in a roundabout way," Gloria said. "I don't want to be their friend," I said. "It might be fun having them two boys be for friends." "I'd rather talk with you," I said. "They're stupid and mean, and they're boys." Gloria would shake her head and sigh, and then she would ask me what was going on in the world, and did I have any stories to tell her. And I always did. So before we move on to chapter 14, we're not going to be doing an example, but I do want you to be thinking about the relationship that the Dewberry boys and Opal have. What kind of relationship do they have? What do you notice that they're doing in this that's happening between them in this story? I want you to think about that for a minute, and then I'm going to talk on it. So take 30 seconds to think about the relationship between the two Dewberry boys and Opal. So what I notice about their relationship is that they're always arguing. And it seems like mostly Stevie. Dunlap seems to be more interested in being nice to her, but Stevie isn't, and that really upsets Opal. I can tell that she's getting upset by them teasing her when she says over here, "And you can go and tell on me if you want, you big bald-headed baby." And I think she's upset because they're saying things about people that she is friends with. So like Otis. They're saying mean things about Otis right here. Otis is retarded, and we know that's not a nice word to use ever, and that's never a word we should use. So she's getting frustrated by that. The other thing that they keep saying is they keep talking about how Miss Gloria Dump is a witch, and that's one of her friends. So she's getting upset. The next question I want you to be thinking about, and I'm not going to answer it, I just want you to think about it. Why do you think Miss Gloria Dump says that she should try to be friends with them? Why do you think she's encouraging Opal to be friends with them, even though they're the ones saying mean things about her? Keep that in mind, and keep in mind just kind of what Gloria Dump is doing and the questions that she's asking Opal. All right, we're going to move back down to chapter 14. So let's get started at chapter 14. I'm going to keep following along here. You'll notice there's a few typos in the chapter, so as I'm reading it, I might be switching, like if there's something spelled incorrectly, just so that you know that's what I'm doing. All right, chapter 14. Sometimes I told Gloria the story Miss Fanny Black had just told me, or I imitated Otis, tapping his pointy-toed boots and playing for all the animals, and that always made her laugh. And sometimes I made up a story, and Gloria Dump would listen to it all the way through, from the beginning to end. She told me she used to love to read stories, but she couldn't anymore because her eyes were so bad. Can't you get some really strong glasses? I asked her. Child, she said, they don't make glasses strong enough for these eyes. One day, when the storytelling was done, I decided to tell Gloria that Otis was a criminal. I thought maybe I should tell an adult about it, and Gloria was the best adult I knew. Gloria, I said. She said back. You know Otis. I don't know him, but I know what you tell me about him. Well, he's a criminal. He's been in jail. Do you think I should be afraid of him? What for? I don't know, for doing bad things, I guess, for being in jail. Child, said Gloria, let me show you something. She got up out of her chair real slow and took hold of my hand. Let's the two of us go for a walk all the way in the back of this yard. Okay, I said. We walked and Winn Dixie followed right behind us. It was a huge yard and I had never been all the way back in it. When we got to a big old tree, we stopped. Look at this tree, Gloria said. I looked up. There were bottles hanging from just about every branch. There were whiskey bottles and beer bottles and wine bottles, all tied with a string. And some of them were clanking against each other and making a spooky kind of noise. Me and Winn Dixie stood and stared at the tree, and the hair on top of his head rose a little bit, and he growled deep in his throat. Gloria Dump pointed her cane at the tree. What do you think about this tree? I said, I don't know. Why are all those bottles on it? To keep the ghosts away, Gloria said. What ghosts? The ghosts of all the things I've done wrong. I looked at the bottles on the tree. You did that many things wrong? I asked her. Said Gloria. More than that. But you're the nicest person I know, I told her. Don't mean I haven't done bad things, she said. There's a whiskey bottle up there, I told her, and beer bottles. Child, said Gloria Dump, I know that. I'm the one who put them there. I'm the one who drank what was in them. My mama drank, I whispered. I know, Gloria Dump said. The preacher says sometimes she couldn't stop drinking. Said Gloria again. That's the way it is for some folks. We get started and we can't stop. Are you one of those people? Yes, ma'am, I am, but these days I don't drink nothing stronger than coffee. Did the whiskey and the beer and the wine, did they make you do the bad things that are ghosts now? Some of them, said Gloria Dump. Some of them I would have done anyway, with alcohol or without it, before I learned. Learned what? Learned what is the most important thing. And what's that? I asked her. It's different for everyone, she said. You find out on your own. But in the meantime, you've got to remember, you can't always judge people by the things they've done. You got to judge them by what they're doing now. You judge Otis by the pretty music he plays and how kind he is to the animals, because that's all you know about him right now. All right? Yes, ma'am, I said. And them Dewberry boys, you try not to judge them too harsh either, all right? All right, I said. All right then, said Gloria Dump, and she turned and started walking away. Winn Dixie nudged me with his wet nose and wagged his tail, and when he saw I wasn't going, he trotted after Gloria. I stayed where I was and I studied the tree. I wondered if my mama, wherever she was, has a tree full of bottles, and I wondered if I was a ghost to her, the same way she sometimes seemed like a ghost to me. So that's the end of chapter 14. So now I want us to think about chapter 14. I'm going to go, you stay here. I'm going to go to the questions from chapter 14. So it says, what was the problem that Opal was facing? So if you're thinking about chapter 14, it says right here in the very beginning. One day when the storytelling was done, I decided to tell Gloria that Otis was a criminal. I thought that I should maybe tell him about it, or maybe tell an adult about it, and Gloria was the best adult I knew. Gloria, I said, mm-hmm. She said back, you know Otis. I don't know him, but I know what you tell me about him. Well, he's a criminal. He's been in jail. Do you think I should be afraid of him? What for? I don't know. For doing bad things, I guess. For being in jail. So I know that's a problem or a conflict because that's a character versus self conflict. She's been struggling with who to tell or if to tell somebody about what she learned about Otis because she's concerned whether or not she should be afraid of him because he's been in jail. So right here, I'm going to unhighlight this so that you can see what my answer is. Opal is having an internal problem. Problem, self, character versus self. I'm going to put that in parentheses next to it so that you know. And we've talked about this already this year. Character versus self, a problem with herself. She doesn't know if she should hang out with Otis because he's a criminal who spent time in jail. So that's her problem. So now I want us to think, what lesson did Opal learn from Gloria at the bottle tree? So I'm going to go back to that part of the story because that's a really important part of this story, and I'm going to read it again and ask you some questions so you can start to think about your answer. So we're right here. When we got to the big old tree, we stopped. Look at this tree, said Gloria. I looked up. There were bottles hanging from just about every branch. There were whiskey bottles and beer bottles and wine bottles, all tied up with string, and some of them were clanking against each other and making a spooky kind of noise. Me and Winn Dixie stood and stared at the tree, and the hair on top of his head rose a little bit, and he growled deep in his throat. Gloria pointed her cane at the tree. What do you think about this tree? I said, I don't know. Why are all those bottles on it? To keep the ghosts away, Gloria said. What ghosts? The ghosts of the things I've done wrong. I looked at the bottles on the tree. You did that many things wrong, I asked her. Mm-hmm, said Gloria. More than that. But you're the nicest person I know. That don't mean I haven't done bad things, she said. So pause there for a minute. I want you to think about why does Gloria have all those bottles on the tree? It's the first question I want you to think about. Why does she have all the bottles on that tree? If you look right back up here, it tells us she keeps all the bottles on the tree to keep the ghosts away of all the things she's done wrong. So she's telling Opal that she's made bad decisions and she's done things wrong as well. Now I want you to think, why do you think she's telling Opal this? What is she trying to teach Opal in this part of the story? We're going to keep reading right down here. But in the meantime, you got to remember, you can't always judge people by the things they've done. You've got to judge them on what they're doing now. You judge Otis by his pretty music he plays and how kind he is to the animals, because that's all you know about him right now, all right? So right here, I want you now to be thinking about what we just read, and I want you to answer this question. What lesson did Opal learn from Gloria at the bottle tree? So you should start this off, and I'm going to type this in here, but you can type it in on your own. The lesson that Opal learned from Gloria was that, and then you can fill in your blank based on what you read. So I want you to fill that in, and then you can get rid of these when you're done and just keep writing it in. That was just to show you where your answer should be. Then, once you're done writing what you think the lesson is that Opal learned, You want to translate that lesson into a theme or a central message. Okay, so you want to think, what does this tell me the central message is? So once you fill that in, what does that tell you the central message is? Is it that people should take responsibility for their own actions? Anyone can stand up and make a difference in the world? Don't judge people based on their past. Look at who they are now. Or some people cannot be trusted. So you're going to answer number 2. Oops. You're going to answer number 2 and number 3. And then, again, if you need to go back to the story, you can go back to the story and look for your answers back in there. Again, it's going to be in chapter 14 that most of this is. And actually, I'll highlight it for you so that you know where to look. So I'm going to highlight all of the information that I just read out loud. So I think it starts here. And it goes to right about there. So I'll highlight this for you so you kind of know where to look. All right, so answer those 2 questions. I'll give you guys a grade on them tomorrow. And then tomorrow we are going to move on to day 3 of this week. We'll be reading chapters 15 and 16 tomorrow. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.